Hello and welcome to our Rotoworld NBA Christmas preview show. I am Ahmed Fareed, and I am lucky enough to be joined by a couple of the best basketball writers that I know. To my left is Tommy Beer, writer over at Rotoworld. Tommy, thanks for being here.
My pleasure.
And via satellite, not the location that we have, not quite the set design, but he is in Las Vegas from Pro Basketball Talk. That is Kurt Heelan. Hello, Kurt, can you hear us?
I sure can. It's good to be on here with you guys. Thanks.
Las Vegas, right. Now, what are you doing in Las Vegas, Kurt? What's got you out there?
I am out here for the G League Showcase event, where a lot of this is where the trade rumors really start. All the GMs are out here to look at G League players, but really they're here to start the real buzz about trades, and this is where deals start to get done. And plus, I can watch some one free throw for 2-point basketball.
Yeah, right. Innovative right there. Ooh, so maybe some breaking news coming from Kurt. Make sure to follow him on social media, on Twitter as well. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go through the 5 games that we're going to see on Christmas. There are some really good games. A couple of the games maybe not as intriguing as we thought they would be at the beginning of the season, but nonetheless, there are some interesting storylines with all 10 of these teams, so we're going to get into those here in a second. We do want to remind you, though, that you can get around-the-clock expert news all the time, the analysis, rumors, depth chart changes, articles, and more. All you got to do, go to rotoworld.com/NBA, follow that, follow Tommy, follow Kurt Heelan as well on Twitter to get those instant updates. Tommy, should we do it?
Let's do it.
All right, game number 1. We got Celtics versus the defending NBA champion in the Toronto Raptors. Kurt, I'll start with you. These are two teams that are probably happy with where they are right now, but you look at them offensively and you think that they're heading in opposite directions right now.
They are heading in opposite directions. I mean, part of it is that Toronto's really banged up. They're going to be without Marc Gasol for this game, probably without Pascal Siakam. Norman Powell's banged up. So all this has really affected their offense. In the last 2 weeks, they are 25th in the league in offense, where the Celtics over the last 2 weeks are 3rd in the league in offense. And I walk at this game and I'm like, can Boston just blow them out? Can they just put up so many points that Toronto just can't keep up with them?
What do you think, Tommy? You think that's likely? That's possible?
Yeah, you mentioned, Ahmed, they're not exactly where they thought they would be coming into the season. And that's certainly the case with the Raptors. They kind of exceeded expectations early on. I think a lot of people expect them to take a huge step back, but they got great efforts from Fred VanVleet. Norman Powell kind of exceeded expectations. And now they've kind of not only hit a lull, they've really got hit by the injury bug really bad. Gasol's going to be out a couple weeks. As of this taping Friday afternoon, it sounds like Siakam could miss additional time as well. He's dealing with a groin injury. Norman Powell, who's really stepped up for them, is dealing with a shoulder issue. He could miss a couple weeks as well. So from a team that was really exceeding expectations and looked like they were headed towards possibly a top 4 playoff berth in the East, now they're kind of on the downturn. And one of the things we'll talk about, are they buyers at the deadline? Are they sellers at the deadline? Certainly something very interesting to see. But they certainly still have a lot of talent. If they only miss Siakam, who's really, from a most improved player, has stepped his game up even further, if they can get him back quickly, they certainly would be a contender in the East, or at least one of those mid-tier teams, whereas the Celtics, I think, are trying to establish themselves as one of the top squads.
Those offensive ratings, what Kurt was talking about, what you were talking about as well, Toronto down to 22nd here just in the last couple of weeks. So, Tommy, let's look at a matchup here. You got VanVleet and Kyle Lowry versus Kemba Walker and Jaylen Brown, kind of a 4-headed backcourt battle. How do you see that playing out?
It'll be very interesting. Obviously, Toronto was another guy that's been injury plagued, has been VanVleet over the last couple weeks. It sounds like he's heading in the right direction, should be healthy, ready to rock by Christmas Day. Obviously, that's a game that he would like to participate in. Lowry missed some time earlier in the season as well. He's back healthy. Kemba Walker and Jaylen Brown have been really consistent for Boston from the start of the season. So, given their pedigree, given their consistency, they're relatively healthy. I think will edge to Boston for that little backcourt.
Jaylen Brown, 4th year out of Cal, leading the team in rebounds right now. Kemba Walker, Kurt, how do you think he has assimilated to this team so far? Team leader in points, team leader in assists. He seems like a leader on the court as well for them.
And a leader that kind of fits what Brad Stevens likes to do and the chemistry of that team, right? I mean, you think about it, going all the way back to this summer, there were 4 of those guys from the Celtics on Team USA. They got to bond with Kemba Walker. They got to spend time together and get to know each other, and that's really helped them hit the ground running this year. But Kemba Walker, personality-wise, isn't a guy like Kyrie, who's a little more distant and kind of thinks differently than other guys and is kind of his own cat. Kemba Walker's a put his arm around you, lead you into battle kind of guy, and that's resonating in the locker room. Plus, I mean, they just look like a Brad Stevens team, right? I mean, they're moving the ball, they're passing, they're cutting off the ball, they're playing hard. They look like a Brad Stevens team, and Kemba Walker has completely bought into this. It's a really great fit. It's a much better puzzle piece for them, and it shows in the record.
So, Kurt, it's interesting hearing you talk about him because I think you guys both agree that it is the Bucks in the East. They're the class of the East. We all think that. But when you have that second tier, maybe if you have the Bucks as a tier themselves and then you have the second tier teams, you put the Celtics, you put the Raptors, maybe third tier. What tiers are you putting these teams into as far as viable contenders to come out of the East?
I would put the Celtics in the second tier. Look, Philadelphia's in that second tier, and then I think the Celtics are pushing to make that second tier. They've had that kind of defense. I mean, their defense has been better than I expected this year, but they're also getting really good offensive play. Like you said, Jaylen Brown stepped up. Jason Tatum gets a lot of publicity. He's had good moments. When they keep going like this, I think they're on that tier. Toronto, this is where I think, look, this step back over the last couple of weeks with the offense, and if they start to slide down the standings, as they get closer to the deadline, aren't they going to start to think, maybe we should be sellers? We've got, with Marc Gasol and Serge Ibaka, guys that are going to have value if we move them. Everybody could use a big at the deadline if you're really a contender. Could they move them to start, planning for what's next in Toronto?
Yeah, what do you think about that, Tommy?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question. I think it'll be fascinating to see. We still have 6 weeks or so before we get to the deadline, so we'll see how things shake out. I think the Raptors are one of those teams that are certainly on the fence, so these next 6 weeks could determine in early February whether they decide, hey, we're going to start to move some pieces. As Kurt mentioned, Ibaka and Gasol, unrestricted free agents. Masai Ujiri did sign Kyle Lowry to a 1-year extension, which actually increases his trade value. So for a team trading for him, a team that's maybe feels they are a point guard away from being a true contender for a championship, I think he's another guy that'll draw a lot of interest. Obviously, you would assume they're going to kind of commit to Fred VanVleet, who's also a free agent after the season. So that would, kind of put Lowry in a difficult position. If I had to, choose one or the other, I think Toronto at the end of the day, especially because they're coming off a championship, they kind of have some, they're playing with house money a little bit, so to speak. For the Raptors fans, I think that they will probably lean towards selling. They could get a lot of value, as Kurt mentioned. A defensive-minded, versatile big in Marc Gasol. Serge Ibaka can block shots, stretch the floor from three-point territory. Lowry's an incredibly talented point guard with championship pedigree in a league that really places a high value on point guards. I think the Raptors fans feel confident and trust in Masai Ujiri, and I think he'll probably do the right thing, and that'll probably lean towards selling, assuming they don't make a big push these next couple weeks.
You got to defend your title, though. You got to do everything you can to try to hoist that banner. But it's about the future, and it's about setting your team up, not just for this season, but seasons in the future. Exactly. Before we put a little button on this, when we talked about the trade possibilities with Toronto, Kurt, what do you think for Boston? What do they need right now to maybe put them in that conversation 1 and 1A with the Bucks?
They would need another star, another ball handler, another really great shot creator. I mean, they've got good. I'm not sure yet that Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are that guy. Kemba Walker is an all-NBA player. The problem is just getting whoever that guy is. The way their roster is constructed, I mean, you're not going to trade Marcus Smart. He's too much the heart and soul of your team. They've got a lot of cheaper contracts, but they don't have a lot of guys they can move as a, look, you're going to have to give up something to get something. The problem is those guys are kind of all part of their core. So it's really tough to pull off an in-season deal for them without really shaking things up. And I'm not sure that guy is out there at an affordable price. This is going to be a quieter deadline, I think, than a lot of people think. And I'm not sure the Celtics are in a position to make a move, but they are definitely going to be looking at it because, like you said, I mean, they've come along fast. They are right there, and I think they think they're one player away. I'm just not sure if that player is available to them.
Second best team in the East, the Boston Celtics right now, taking on the Raptors. That'll be a good one to start off Christmas Day at noon Eastern. Let's get to game number 2 right now, and you got that team that we've been talking about, that the Celtics and the Raptors, who play in game number 1, are looking up at the standings at. Best record in the NBA, that is the Milwaukee Bucks taking on the Philadelphia 76ers, who a lot of people have picked to be a challenger to the Bucks here. Maybe have gotten off to a little bit slower start than they wanted. Kurt, I will start with you. So here's the thing. The Bucks are scoring at a ridiculous pace. They're outscoring teams at a ridiculous pace. Can Philly do enough offensively to hang with this Milwaukee team?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question. I mean, this team was built defensively. They're so long. They're so athletic. They're so tough to play against with not just Joel Embiid, but I mean, they've got everybody. The shortest guy in their starting lineup is Josh Richardson at like 6'6". They're really tough to score against, but they don't have that shot creator, and you've seen that lately in some of their losses. They really, I mean, Joel Embiid is their best player, and I think, again, he's going to be so critical for them in this game and in the postseason. But you've got to have guys who can create on the perimeter, and Ben Simmons has not taken that step forward. He's kind of plateaued this year, and it's left them searching for that. I'm not sure that they can score enough with the Bucks, who are, as well as you defend them, they're going to get buckets. I mean, they just went up against the Lakers, one of the best defenses of the league, and got plenty of points. They are going to get buckets. Nobody really stops Giannis. If that's the case, I'm not sure how Philadelphia keeps up unless Tobias Harris and some guys start to have a really hot game.
Bucks are outscoring their opponents by about 13, 14 points per game right now. Kurt said there's really no way to slow down Giannis Antetokounmpo. You got to try to figure out a way how to do it. So if you're the 76 and you're trying to think of how you do it, how do you do it?
Well, the strategy, so to speak, is to kind of build a wall right around the free throw line and dare him to shoot from the outside. The problem is this guy knocked down 5 3-pointers against the Lakers last night. That was their strategy, dare him to shoot from the outside. If he knocks down 5 3-pointers, we can all go home because there's not much you can do with the Bucks. We've talked about their offensive exploits. They're ranked first in the league or near the top of the league in terms of offensive efficiency. They're also top 2 in the league in defensive efficiency. Well coached, Mike Budenholzer. There's really anything you want from a team the Bucks are giving you right now. That's why they have the best record in the NBA, and that's why we can talk about second tier. Or are the Sixers there? Probably. The Celtics are kind of on the edge. The Bucks have really differentiated themselves, and they've created a wide gap between them and the rest of the Eastern Conference right now.
So, Kurt, what do you think? There were some people that thought that there was maybe a possibility that Giannis would take a step back. Could he be durable for the whole season? That's yet to be determined. But has he impressed you coming off what a great season he had last year and what he has done so far this season?
Yeah, he's actually taken a step forward this season. He came out, I remember over the summer, he was like, yeah, I won MVP, but I'm really only playing at about 60% of my potential. And we're all like, yeah, right. And we're like, yeah, actually, maybe he was right. I mean, maybe he is. He is really, like you said, the outside shooting has gotten better. More importantly, Ben Simmons, please take note on this. He's taking the shot. Even if he's not hitting it all the time, he's a threat to hit it, and you have to come out and respect it. So the way he's playing, look, he won the MVP, and after the performance against the Lakers, I think that made him the front runner for the MVP next time, this year. I mean, LeBron's still got a chance. James Harden, it turns out, is pretty good at basketball. We'll talk about him later. There's other guys in the conversation, but I think Giannis is the early front runner. He has just been phenomenal.
Real quick, just to follow up on Kurt's point about the Ben Simmons and the confidence issue. I thought one of the more interesting points of last night's game when the Bucks beat the Lakers, Giannis came down, airballed a 3-pointer. Next trip down, took a 3-pointer, to Kurt's point. Wasn't afraid to look bad or, to have the Twitter say, oh, this guy can't shoot, and knock down a 3-pointer. Finished 5 of 7, shooting over 44% from downtown this month. The thing I like most about Giannis is incredibly talented, remarkable skill set. He plays so hard. He doesn't play like a guy that's coming off an MVP. He plays like a guy that's trying to stay in the league on a 10-day contract.
Sure.
And when you have somebody that's as talented as that and as determined and hungry as that, that's a deadly combination. That's a Jordan combination, So I think that, as we look forward to games on Christmas and NBA fans, that's one of the things we have to be thankful for.
He's been good. He's been getting better as well. There was another name, Joel Embiid. I think some people mentioned, Kurt, that he could possibly be in that MVP conversation as well. So you got Giannis in this game. You got Tobias Harris in this game. What kind of games do you think they need? How well do they need to play against this Bucks team to give them a chance?
Look, if they're going to win this game, if they're really going to be in it, they need shooting. If you watch the Sixers, they've got to find a way to get those outside shots. Tobias Harris can be that guy. Josh Richardson can be that guy. But really, Joel Embiid is kind of key for them. His ability to shoot and make threes opens up everything else because the bigs have to come. You want to pull Brook Lopez out, right? You don't want him packing the paint, blocking shots. You're going to make him come out and cover Joel Embiid at the arc. If you do that, Joel Embiid's quickness will get by him, but also it just opens up the driving lanes. I don't know if he's going to be able to do it. I mean, we'll see if he can do it. I think they need a game from him like that, though. And frankly, going into the playoffs, they're going to need games like that. Joel Embiid has got to be their everything. I mean, we remember the on-off numbers from last year's playoffs where it was just ridiculous. I think it's going to be that kind of thing again with the Sixers because they don't have their Jimmy Butler right now.
Yeah, they got Embiid. He's leading the team in points, rebounds, blocks. Harris is right there, second in points and rebounds as well. Back over to the Bucks, and you see this from time to time. A team has to adjust on the fly, and they've had to do that a little bit. They're still dominant, but they've had to do it without Eric Bledsoe, their point guard, missing time with a right fibula fracture. How do you think they've navigated that situation so far, Tommy?
They've done it well, and credit to the Milwaukee Bucks front office for kind of building some depth and having some insurance behind, because Dante DiVincenzo has been playing very well. Obviously not the scorer that Bledsoe is, but a solid defender, good rebounder, stuffs the stat sheets, gets assists and boards and near double digits in points. And then you have George Hill coming off the bench, a proven veteran. You know what he brings to the table, remarkable outside shooter. He's actually leading the league in three-point percentage this season, and that's kind of the key that Budenholzer kind of unlocked last season. Get Giannis in the game and then surround the floor with guys that can that can knock down three-pointers. Brook Lopez, perfect center to play with Giannis because he can obviously make three-pointers. They brought Kyle Korver in this offseason. George Hill was key for them. The second half of last season after the trade deadline into the postseason. Wesley Matthews has provided a nice little spark, offensive spark. He's another guy that doesn't do much except knock down three-pointers. But when you have Giannis who just destroys everything else and really dominates the paint on both ends of the floor, if you can have guys that just knock down the three, they really complement Giannis very well, and that's what the Bucks have done.
In a weird way, too, and we saw this with the Warriors sometimes, Kurt, is that when a Steph Curry goes down or a Klay Thompson goes down or they're playing without KD, other players have to step up, and it's actually a good thing as you go through the regular season to give some other players some different opportunities. Do you think ultimately you never want injuries, but this could be one that ends up helping the Bucks?
A little bit. I think that this is something the Spurs were so good at for so long with Popovich too, right? Suddenly these guys you'd never heard of were contributing because they got a little bit at a time and a little bit at a time, and they got into key moments, and you're like, why are they playing this guy now? Well, it's because when they needed him, they could rely on him, and I think you're getting that with DiVincenzo now, right? Like, this is not necessarily a guy who's going to get a lot of playoff minutes behind George Hill and Eric Bledsoe, but if they need him, these are the kind of minutes where he gains confidence, he can step in and play a role for them. I think that those kind of things, that's how you build a team. And don't forget, by the way, Mike Budenholzer came of age sitting right next to Greg Popovich. It's not an accident that this kind of stuff happens with them.
And Tommy, before we wrap up this game, every team in the East is trying to avoid the Bucks for as long as they can in the playoffs. The Sixers, where they sit right now, they might have to play them earlier than they want.
Very good point. I think that's hugely important. Securing that second seed, assuming the Bucks are going to secure the first seed, which I think is a safe assumption at this point. The race for that second seed between, obviously, the Sixers and the Celtics will be motivated for it. Do the Raptors, decide to become buyers at the deadline and make a run toward that second seed? I think getting into that number 2 slot, and as you mentioned, avoiding the Bucks until the Eastern Conference Finals is a very important goal that teams will have.
They can help themselves a little bit by getting a win on Christmas Day, the game number 2 that will be featured 2:30 Eastern Time, Bucks and Sixers. That will be a good one. So now we move on to game number 3 that maybe a year ago looked a little bit better. Warriors not quite what they have been. Game number 3 is Rockets and Warriors. I am safe in assuming that the Warriors will not make it to a 6th straight NBA Finals this coming summer, as they have the worst record in the NBA. So Kurt, let's start with you on this. How do the Warriors stay in this one? They're without some of their stars. Obviously, KD left in the offseason. And how do you slow down a guy by the name of James Harden, who has 11 40-plus point games this season?
On his way to the arena, Steve Kerr needs to go by a church and light a candle and say a prayer. I don't know what they're going to do. I think there's a lot of teams recently who have tried doubling Harden out high, and it turns out that didn't even really work. And the problem for the Warriors is, even if they wanted to do that, their defenders aren't good enough. He's just going to get by them and blow through them, or you're going to do this, and like the Clippers did the other night, the Clippers tried to really focus on James Harden. Russell Westbrook goes off for 40 points. It's really hard to defend them when Westbrook's playing the way he is, plus they get some points from Clint Capella. And by the way, at some point they're going to get Eric Gordon back. This is a really pretty good Rockets team. It'll be interesting to see how they match up with those Los Angeles teams in big games, but in this one, the Warriors just don't have the pieces to slow him at all.
No, but they did hold him to 36 points in November. There you go, 4 less than 40. So, so they've had moderate success so far. James Harden, the numbers, you look at him, Tommy, and they're ridiculous once again. He's led the league in scoring each of the past 2 seasons. Looks like he's well on his way to doing it again this season, upping his point total by 3 points per game. Is it, in a weird way, safe to say that we almost have taken him for granted at this point?
I think so. I think if we asked somebody a couple of years ago, hey, somebody's going to average over 39 points a game through the first 2 months of the season, that just seemed unbelievable because he's putting up numbers we haven't seen since Will Chamberlain. Not only is he up near around 39 points a game, almost 6 rebounds per game, 7.5 assists, the amount of points he creates for the Rockets. He's more like, there have been 16 games that have players have scored more than 55 points since in the calendar year 2019. This is now December. 14 of those games have been by James Harden. This year, he's more likely to score more than 50 points than fewer than 25 points. One of my favorite stats for Harden is 7 games this season, he scored less than 30 points. In those 7 games, he's averaging 26 points. That would be 10th in the league in scoring if you take just his games that he hasn't scored 30 points. So yes, I understand. Listen, he has a unique style, let's call it. Isolation heavy, dribbles the ball into the ground and creates his own shot. I understand all that. But I do think we take it for granted because he's doing things. If it was easy enough and everybody could do it, then everybody would do it. He just has an incredible, unique talent. He's mastered his craft. He's put in his 10,000 hours. And I, for one, like to stop and really reflect and appreciate just what this guy's doing because we may not see the likes of it for the rest of our
Whether
lifetimes.
you like it or not, we haven't seen something like this in a long time. What James Harden has been able to do, not just this year, the past couple of years as well. If you're trying to look for positives and players to watch, Kurt, over on the Warriors, you don't have Steph right now. He's hurt. Clay's hurt. You do have a rookie by the name of Eric Paschall. He was a second-round pick, 41st overall, 23-year-old out of Villanova. He's been impressing some people. Kurt, has he been impressing you?
Yeah, he has been. This is a guy who, in a weirdly down rookie class, right? When you go from 3 through about 10, I don't know that R.J. Barrett's completely lived up to expectations. Certainly the Jarrett Culvers of the world haven't. Guys farther down the draft have, and Eric Paschall is one of those guys. The Warriors, you think he's averaging 15.9 points a game. He can get to the rim where he's very effective. He's good in the paint. He's played good on both ends for them. More importantly, I think what's really interesting, when you go forward with them, when you think, hey, next year they do get Steph Curry back, they do get Klay Thompson back healthy, they're going to be looking to make a run again. They found a rotation player. They found a guy who can come off the bench and give them quality, athletic, energetic minutes, and they've needed that. They need a couple more guys like that in the rotation to go with their stars, and they found one this summer. That's this season. That alone is a positive for the Warriors. Plus, they got that beautiful new building, so there's that.
It's a good building. Hasn't had a whole lot of winning in it, at least if you're the home side.
Just when they brought up that graphic with Eric Paschall leading the team in scoring, imagine taking a time machine back 1 year and telling a Warriors fan, now at this time last year, they had 4 guys averaging over 20 points. Durant, Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, DeMarcus Cousins. So, so we're going to hop in the time machine, and this time next year, your leading scorer is going to be a second-round draft pick out of Villanova. The guy that's leading your team in minutes is going to be Glenn Robinson III. Might be a little bit difficult to convince a Warriors fan.
And I don't know if they would have renewed their season tickets if they would have known that as well, but the building is beautiful there in Golden State as well. So here's the deal. So Rockets are favored to win this game, obviously. If they don't, maybe Mike D'Antoni is out the door immediately at the final whistle. Weird situation there, Tommy, with D'Antoni. He's on the last year of his contract. They're not having any talks about an extension. What do the Rockets want, and what maybe is Mike D'Antoni not bringing to them?
It's interesting. It sounds like he's content for this to be the last season. It really might be a make or break, kind of season in Houston. Obviously, they have Harden under contract for a few more years, Westbrook as well, but this is really a great opportunity. This is the first year we've kind of gone into the season. You could make an argument for 3 or 4 different teams to win a title. The one thing I worry about D'Antoni and kind of the situation in Houston thus far is he's really leaning heavily on Harden and Westbrook, and he's given Westbrook some nights off, but especially Harden and Capella and Trent Tucker's playing around over 38 minutes a night. Does he lean too heavily on those guys in the regular season? And is that one of the reasons that they've really had a difficult time, staying fresh, down the stretch? You see the graphic here with the minutes played per game from the guys off the bench. They really need, it'll be interesting to see if D'Antoni relies a little bit more on the Austin Rivers, the Ben McLemores. Obviously they want to get Eric Gordon back. That's been a factor. He's been out. But we shall see going forward.
What do you think about that, Kurt, and Mike D'Antoni, the situation there?
Yeah, I will say, just talking to people out here in Vegas and talking to people around the league, I haven't really heard anyone who thinks he's going to be back next year. And even Daryl Morey could possibly be on the way out. Look, they sold the team a couple years ago. Tim Fertitta takes over, a different owner, and it's a very different dynamic, and it's just not working out between the chemistry between that front office and ownership with Mike D'Antoni. It's just not there anymore. Everybody thinks he's going to be a free agent this summer as a coach, which is a whole nother interesting dynamic. It might be the most interesting thing on the free agent market this summer anyway. So I would be shocked if he's back, and I'm not sure how that impacts them down the stretch. The players want to win, and they think he can help them win. But if that gets a little strange, if they're strained there, does he still have the same authority in the locker room? It's going to be interesting to watch.
A strange dynamic for a team that is all in, basically all in to win right now, and you have a coach that might be on his way out. Weird. So before we put a bow on this game, not to use the pun of Christmas there, pun unintended, will we see Steph, Clay? Are we going to see that? What are the Warriors going to do at this point? Because it seems like there's a lot of people in San Francisco that say this is a team that just should gun for the #1 pick in the NBA draft lottery right now.
I think that's probably a safe assumption. I don't think we'll see Clay. I think that we can. I think if Steph is healthy, we could see him in March, maybe just to get a few games in and kind of knock off some rust a little bit. But they're going to sit Draymond Green. I see that as a common theme over the second half of the season. So obviously they're not going to be contender for a championship, let alone the 8th seed, so it doesn't really behoove them to stretch these guys. They've played a ton of games, as you mentioned, 5 straight finals. That's unprecedented in NBA history. Give these guys a little bit of an extra rest and kind of regroup and regun for next year.
Get them back healthy next year. Worst record in the NBA the Warriors have right now, 4th best in the West is the Rockets. Game number 3 on Christmas Day. Game number 4, this is the big one. We got Clippers, who are number 2 out west. We got Lakers, number 1 out west. The Battle of L.A. LeBron was right. All eyes on L.A. now in the NBA. Locker rooms just 70 feet apart there from each other in the Staples Center. So, Kurt, I'll start with you. Just your anticipation for this game and what we're about to witness on Christmas Day.
I'm so excited about this because this looks like the clash of the 2 best teams in the West, right? And it's never been a rivalry before. It has always been the Lakers were the big brother, the Clippers were the little brother, and the Laker fans still see it that way. And opening night when the Clippers won that game was kind of a shock to fans. Look, I'm based out of LA. I have a lot of Laker fans or fans who are friends of mine, and they came up there. I didn't realize the Clippers were going to be this good. Like, they are legitimately good, and it's kind of shocking some people. This is a real test, though. The Lakers are playing better than anyone in the league, or in the West right now. Not better than the Bucks, but better than anybody in the West. The Clippers, a little more up and down, but you see flashes and moments from them. They're clearly aiming for the end of the season, but I think that they would like to make another statement that they have the personnel to really give these Lakers some trouble. It's going to be just an epic clash.
This is the primetime game, 8 p.m. Eastern. Tommy, please tell me that we're not going to hear the words load management for this game, right? It can't be possible.
There will be riots. There will be riots.
Starting with me.
100%. Yes, exactly. You've had all your Christmas dinner, the ham, you can just kick back, open a beer, and just relax. And and I'm certainly looking forward to this game, as I know Kurt is as well, and many Who fans out there. Yes, so I certainly think that we can assume that both Paul George and Kawhi Leonard will play. If for no other reason, Adam Silver will start just do something drastic if they are not in the lineup.
He will drag him out there by the back of the shirt and make him play.
Absolutely. He will threaten Doc Rivers to a fight.
Yes.
So yes, I assume that and as Kurt mentioned, the Clippers season has been a little bit up and down. Certainly not as consistently spectacular as the Lakers season has been. But that part of that is due to the kind of fluctuating rotations and Kawhi Leonard taking nights off here and there. this is a statement. The first game of the season, a statement game. They both played. This is a statement game. You expect them to be riled up. And outside of Giannis, you could make an argument that the 3 next best players in the sport, or 3 of the next 5 best players in the sport, will be on the floor there in Kawhi Leonard, Anthony Davis, and LeBron. Wow. Don't forget about Paul George, who finished top 3 in MVP voting.
Sometimes looks like the best player.
100% finished last year top 3 in MVP voting and top 3 in Defensive Player of the Year. So fascinating. As it's just a number of different storylines go into this, making it.
So let's get into a little bit of the X's and O's here, Kurt, and I'll throw it to you because the Lakers have been playing very well. Big. JaVale McGee has been playing well. Dwight Howard alongside Anthony Davis. Is that the key for the Lakers to make sure that they can still do that against the Clippers?
I think X's and O's wise, that's going to be the real battle. I mean, they are much better when they have Dwight or JaVale next to Anthony Davis, and he gets to kind of come in and block shots. And by the way, I think we all predicted, I know Tommy spent all summer saying, don't you worry about Dwight Howard. He's going to be fantastic. And of course, he's lived up to that. Nobody saw this coming, but they're getting so much out of the bigs. If you're the Clippers, you want to get Lou Williams and Montrezl Harrell in early, is with Paul George, with Kawhi Leonard, move Kawhi to the 4, and it's going to be an interesting battle. It's going to be small versus big, small ball. Can the Clippers force them small? Can the Clippers say, you played big, we're going to play faster than you, we're going to be a little more athletic than you. With Kawhi Leonard, we can still defend, and we're going to cause you trouble. That is really possible. It's a really interesting X's and O's matchup, and these coaches, by the way, are taking notes, making little circles, putting that away in the file, saying, we're going to need this come May. I really want to keep track of how this works tonight, just to experiment with some stuff.
What do you think, Tommy? That almost seems likely that the Clippers are able to do that, to make them go small.
I think so, and I think Kurt brings up a great point. It's kind of, Bill Belichick playing a team in Week 16. He's not going to use his, his full complement of plays, 2-point conversion, goal line plays. Keep a few in the pocket because, again, once the series, winds down, I think most of us agree that come the Western Conference Final, these are the 2 teams that we're going to see matching up in the Western Conference Final. Should be fascinating. So the standings give us an idea that these 2 teams have kind of separated themselves this far.
What percent chance, to go out on a limb, that these 2, it's Lakers and Clippers, who by the way have never met in the playoffs, came close in 2006. The Lakers actually blew a 3-1 lead to the Suns that year. Would have happened, didn't happen. So what do you think the percent chances that we finally see it, and it does happen in the Western Conference Final? I think the Nuggets have gotten off to a slow start, but I wouldn't count them out. I think that's the team that has a chance to knock out one of these other 2 squads. If Jokic, kind of gets in shape, gets revved up, I think they have the depth. They have home court advantage in Denver, obviously the Mile High City. I'm not as confident on the Rockets, but if I had to give a percentage, I'd say 75-80% chance these are the 2 squads we see match up in the Western Conference Final. Kurt, is that the same percent chance you would give?
Yeah, I think so. I'm not as sold on Denver, although they've played a little better lately. But again, they are a capable regular season team, and Houston's obviously playing really well too. So, and look, the Clippers genuinely are aiming for being at their peak come April and May. They are not that concerned about seeding as much. They are concerned about having guys like Kawhi Leonard healthy and right when it matters. So maybe they slip back, but either way, I still think this is the Western Conference Finals. And if it is, whether the Clippers end up as a 2 or 3 seed, that's by the way, you know what that ends up being? Basically like 7 Laker home games. Yeah, because if you've ever been to a Clipper-Laker game, it doesn't matter whose building it is. It's a Laker building.
The logos may change, but the atmosphere inside the Staples Center will not. So, Kurt, I'm going to hit you up on this again, another matchup. How about LeBron versus Kawhi, and what you're looking forward to seeing the most in that matchup?
You know what's fascinating about that is both of these guys, part of what makes them tough to guard is they're so physically strong, they can get where they want to go on the court, and you can't stop them. It's hard to keep Kawhi Leonard out of his spots on the floor because he'll just kind of bully you to get there, and then once he gets there, there's not much you can do to stop him. LeBron's kind of the same way, so physically strong, and we sometimes just kind of forget that, how hard you have to foul him if he's going to the rim to stop him from scoring. These are the 2 guys, when they do match up, are physically capable of slowing the other guy. There aren't many guys who can get with LeBron and physically slow him down. Kawhi Leonard is one of those guys, and vice versa. It makes a fascinating one-on-one matchup. I don't know how much we're going to see that in this game, but when it happens, keep an eye on it, because these are the two of the guys who are physically capable of slowing the other guy, and there's a handful of those guys in the league total.
They've been very careful, obviously, with Kawhi this year. He has played 5 games in a row, just one time. That was his max this year. His efficiency's down a little bit. Maybe hasn't hit his stride yet. LeBron has been the opposite here. LeBron is taking off in, what is it, his 17th year now? He is leading the NBA in assists, Tommy. This is I don't even want to call it a resurgence for LeBron because he's always been one of the top players in the league, but this is a really special year for him so far.
I think, and he's gone out of his way to make a point. I think he heard last year, okay, Kawhi's the best player in the NBA, and Embiid's really good. Giannis is the MVP. And LeBron said, hey, guys, remember me? You know, the guy that averaged a triple-double in the finals last time I played in the finals when I made 8 straight. So, you know, he's kind of taken the opposite approach, whereas, you know, the Raptors kind of laid the blueprint for Kawhi, rest every, you know, never play back-to-back games, play 60 games or so, make sure he's healthy. LeBron has come out and said, listen, I'm going to play every game I can unless I'm severely injured. I'm going to play 82 games this year, and I want to lead the league in assists, and he's just that talented. You know, we saw Giannis kind of put the crown on his head and, you know, kind of stake the claim to being the best player in the world. I think LeBron's a prideful player, has a teenage son that's, you know, obviously into the NBA.
Yeah.
I think he wants to prove to his fans and his kids and, you know, to himself that he's still one of the best players in the league, and these are the games that he really gets up for and has an opportunity on the biggest stage to prove, yes, guys, don't forget about me. I'm still the best player on this planet.
And he's trying to make that statement now in December and November. Kurt, what do you think? Do you think LeBron keeps this up all year? Because you mentioned about the Clippers. The Clippers have an eye towards the postseason. They're going to make sure that Paul George and Kawhi Leonard are fresh. Should the Lakers be worried about that maybe a little bit more than they are right now?
You could make that argument. LeBron doesn't want to sit out. I think Tommy hit the nail on the head. He wants to prove. He played 82 in Cleveland one year. I mean, towards the end. He will do that. That said, you want my guess as to what happens? If the Lakers remain the number 1 seed and a pretty solid number 1 seed, or even a top 2 seed, I think you start to see him rest a little in March. You start to see some load management games there, or they'll call it an injury if that makes him feel better. But they're going to give him time off in the weeks running up to the playoffs. That's where that rest is going to come in. He's not going to take it now. He's certainly not going to take it in nationally televised games. But when it gets late in the season, if they're pretty locked into their seed, that's where you take LeBron out for a few games, let him get his legs under him, let him get his body right, because it's going to be a marathon of a playoffs in the West.
Kurt actually kind of circled back an interesting point he made. If they're between the 1 and the 2 seeds and it's between the Clippers and the Lakers, do the Lakers really, are they motivated to jump the Clippers? And, you know, because they're going to have home court advantage in the finals,
right,
in the Western Conference Finals either way. You know, it's not like they got to travel to Denver if Denver was the 1 seed. So if they know either LA team's going to be 1 and 2, maybe they're even less motivated to capture number 1 than they typically would be.
So much on the line now, so much on the line 5 weeks from now, a month from now, 2 months from now. Before we wrap this up, I got to get a prediction on this game. Lakers, Clippers. Tommy, who do you think wins?
Give me LeBron, a motivated Lakers team, a little bit more excitement, a little more motivated than the Clippers. So I'm gonna. The Clippers obviously won the opening game, so I'm gonna take the Lakers.
And they did that without Paul George too. Correct. So now we think we'll have both of them on the court. True. Kurt, what do you think?
I'm with Tommy. I'm going to take the Lakers in this one, and I'll tell you what I think. I don't know how the Clippers match up with Anthony Davis. I think that's the guy that really gives them problems. They're going to throw different guys at him, but if you watch Anthony Davis, even against the Bucks, nobody has an answer for him when he's playing like this. And LeBron's trying to feed him, you know, the ball, both on lookouts on runs, but you know, and fast break and in transition, but in the post and wherever he can get him. I just don't know who the Clippers have who matches up with Anthony Davis, although, to be fair, what team does have a guy that matches up with Anthony Davis?
Yeah, he hasn't been created yet. They got to figure out a way. Giannis out there maybe with the Milwaukee Bucks. So that is game number 4 on Christmas Day. That is a good one, Clippers and Lakers. The final game on Christmas Day features the New Orleans Pelicans versus the Denver Nuggets. For the Pelicans, the luster of this one is not quite what it could have been. Kurt, that's where we'll start with this one. Obviously, Zion Williamson is out. It appears like he will be out for some time here. It really takes the shine off what would have been a feature game on Christmas Day.
Yeah, we were all excited to see. I mean, everybody going into the season, how excited were we to watch them? And you saw them in the preseason, and Zion's dunking off of Lonzo lobs, and you're like, this is going to be so much fun. And it's really just taken the air out of the building. It's just not as much fun. The Pelicans are struggling mightily without him, and you could see how much they're just not good on either end of the floor right now. So that takes a lot of the luster off of this game in particular, and just out of their season. They want to get him back, though. They need to get him back, ideally, well before the trade deadline. I don't think they're looking to trade. I've heard they're not looking to trade Brandon Ingram, but you really would like to see those two guys play together before you make some sort of commitment to Brandon Ingram.
Yeah, what do you think about that, Tommy? Because Brandon Ingram played his first 3 seasons with the Lakers. He's looked pretty good so far. His points per game is up by 7, I think.
He's looked fantastic, averaging over 25 points a game, 7 boards, scoring efficiently, which is something he hadn't done in the past. But the Pelicans really have a tough decision to make because as a restricted free agent, they didn't extend him. They had a chance to extend him prior to the season. They chose not to, or he turned down an offer. Therefore, he's going to be a restricted free agent this July. There's going to be teams that throw a lot of money at him, quite possibly the max. Do Pelicans feel comfortable paying him, that type of player a max salary? You only have so many max salary slots to use alongside Zion. Obviously, this season hasn't gotten along, so I think that's part of their motivation to get Zion back on the court and see how this team, as David Griffin constructed it, J.J. Redick, Drew Holiday, Zion alongside Brandon Ingram, are those guys, because right now the Pelicans' record's right near the bottom of the league.
Yeah.
A lot of folks expected them to be, compete for the eighth seed out east. So if they get these guys together for at least a month or so, can they play competitive basketball? Could make a decision into how they handle Ingram going forward.
So that is one way of looking at it. You want to see Zion play with Ingram and some of these other guys. Kurt, another way of looking at it is it's a lost season for the Pelicans. Why bring him back if he's not who we thought he was going to be? Or he might be healthy, but the extra 2 months of rest could be even more beneficial for him. How much are you hearing about Zion not even lacing him up at all this year?
That gets discussed a little bit around the league, but I've heard they want to get him back on the court. They want to, you're just delaying some developmental steps for him if he's physically ready to go. And they're going to be, they admittedly said this. I mean, Alvin Gentry's like, we're going to be overly cautious. They're going to be that way, but I still think we're going to see him play for them this season because they want the developmental steps. They want to see how he plays with Ingram. They want to, if you take a year off, yes, you get healthy, but you're still a rookie when you come in. You're still going to be making rookie mistakes. They would like to eliminate a few of those things going into next season.
Let's go over to the Denver Nuggets now because they have a guy in Nikola Jokic who I think some people thought a dark horse MVP candidate. Slow start to the year. He has been better in December here, Tommy, and a lot has been made about his physical shape. And is he in shape to play? Is he in tip-top condition? Even his head coach Mike Malone has hinted that he's lifting weights more now, and he has lost some weight. So when you look at Nikola Jokic and what he's done so far this year, what comes to mind?
Not really sticking to a diet, and I think we can all relate to it. It's difficult, but at the same time, Jokic is the hub of that Denver offense. Last year he was in the MVP conversation just because he really was really efficient. Obviously, leading the team in assists, leading the team in rebounds. They need him to be effective and efficient in order to be really good. He wasn't that way over the first 5 weeks or so of the season. The last 3 or 4 weeks, he's really stepped up. And I think the key with him is just aggressiveness. When he takes a lot of shots, when he looks for his own shot, it really opens up the floor for the rest of his team. When they feed him the ball at that high post, when he looks around the floor, don't be afraid to take those 3-pointers, drag the defense out, open the lane up a little bit for the rest of his teammates. So I'm confident that Jokic, properly motivated, properly caffeinated Jokic, can be a real difference maker in the West. And I'm confident that we'll see that Jokic, and I have my fantasy team too. So I have
motivation.
I have a vested interest here. So let's hope he can kind of pick it up going forward.
Kurt, what do you think of this? What do you make of this Nuggets team? Because you have Jokic, who is an MVP candidate, who was underwhelmed a bit so far this season. They do have a lot of talent on that roster, and sometimes it seems like it's hard to get all that talent into meaningful roles on this team. What's your view of this Nuggets team so far? Despite all that, third out west.
Yeah, I think they're a really good regular season team, though. I still think, the Will Bartons of the world and Jamal Murray is making plays at points. And Nikola Jokic, he did start slow. I think there's some FIBA hangover from that. He played in a very different system where they were using him very differently, and he came back and wasn't as aggressive, like Tommy said. So I think a lot of things started to go into that slow start. I am still not sold on them yet as a playoff team. I think, though, they are a team to watch as a potential buyer at the deadline. Looking for a stretch four, looking for a guy who can fit with what they're doing and give them more passing and spacing. They've got a system. They know what they want to do. I'm not sure that they have the talent to compete with the two Los Angeles teams yet in a playoff series. They've got enough talent, though, I think, to get by New Orleans on Christmas Day.
Yeah, I do think so, because New Orleans, while they don't have Zion, Tommy, they do have J.J. Redick and they do have Drew Holiday. I don't know for how much longer they may have them, and this almost could be a showcase game for them.
It could be. One quick point, just touching on what Kurt had brought up. One of the real benefits the Nuggets do have is the depth. I mean, they have talented young players in Malik Beasley and Juancho Hernan-Gomez that can't get into the rotation right now, but other teams would love to get a crack out. So if they wanted to put those guys on the trade block, those are two guys that didn't get the extension, so they will be restricted free agents as well. So you have to pay all these guys all this money. Are those the type of players that would fetch another interesting piece if they wanted to kind of supplement their roster going forward?
Right.
And yes, the Pelicans are another fascinating team to see what they do as the deadline. We talked about how they feel about Brandon Ingram going forward. J.J. Redick they have for another year. Mark Stein just had a recent report where they want to keep Redick in-house. They have him under contract for another year. But interestingly, he said that Drew Holiday might be a guy that they put on the block. If they do, he will be a player that draws an immense amount of talent. You're looking at in Drew Holiday, one of the most talented two-way guards in the league. Guy can score, dish, incredible perimeter defender. An All-NBA first-team defender. So if you have a defender that's top tier at the point of attack, can really make a difference for playoff competitors. So if they were to put him on the block, they would receive some Godfather offers that might be difficult to turn down.
All right, you guys picked the Clippers and Lakers game. I'm going to pick this one. I'm going to go Nuggets.
Going out on a limb,
I'm going to go Nuggets this one, so we'll see who gets the victory there. Anything more to add here, Kurt? Those are the 5 games on Christmas Day, which has really become a huge event and a holiday, the big day for the NBA. Oh, we lost, and Kurt has said goodbye. He's like, you know what? We've done all 5 games. We've done all 5 games. He's got some things to do in Las Vegas.
Exactly.
Right? He's like 45 minutes has been long enough. We do want to let you know that you can always watch us here on YouTube. We got some NBA basketball content. Tommy, follow him on Twitter, all the work he does over there as well. But you can also listen to it too. We got podcasts. You can catch up on all the latest NBA news, rumors, waiver wire pickups. You got fantasy strategies is all. All you got to do is subscribe to the Rotoworld Basketball Podcast. Listen to 3 episodes per week. You can get all 3 every single week. Go to rotoworld.com/podcast/NBA or wherever you listen to your podcast. So, Tommy, I'll give you the final word. Big day.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
It's almost coming.
Happy New Year. 5 games. Tommy, Kurt, well done. We'll see you next time, everyone.